Assalamu alaikum everyone. So here is our Frantz Fanon lecture series, and this is our first lecture, uh, and basically it's about Frantz Fanon, who was a writer and a theorist and a psychiatrist and a political philosopher, a founder of decolonial, colonial, post-colonial theory, and a very influential scholar in multiple fields. In this particular lecture, we are actually focusing on his three books and what are the basic and primary themes of these three books. So we'll not go into depth of these books. We'll not go into the depth of what ideas are there. I'll just be discussing uh, briefly the main theme of all these three books, and then I'll try to connect it so that we can understand what is philosophy given by Frantz Fanon. So the books are Black Skin, White Mask, which was the first book he wrote, and it was written in 1952. Then came the Wretched of the Earth, which was written after 9 years in 1961, and then came the Dying Colonialism in 67 after about 6 years. So these are the books which we are focusing on the themes in it. So let's talk about Black Skin, White Mask, a very influential book, and a book which was actually telling the situation of the people who were colonized. And now I'll take up these three books and the themes of the books in two ways. First, the blacks, the Africans. Why? Because this is what Frantz Fanon has done. Secondly, I'll just take it as an overarching umbrella. I'll take it as a general umbrella which will include all the colonizers and all the colonized, because though Frantz Fanon is talking about French colonization and Algerians as colonized, yet um, uh, yet the influences or the similar kind of patterns can be seen in different other societies like South Asia, like Latin America. So we do see this thing, and like Southeast Asia, all these colonized uh, nation states or all these colonized areas and regions. Though I do recognize the differences between the ways through which French colonized the region from the ways through which Britishers they colonized the region. There are differences. Yet the condition, I'm here focusing on the condition of a colonized, the one who were oppressed. The condition somehow or the other is same. There is multiple literature available on this, drawing the similarities and differences, but the focus of this particular presentation is not that. I'm just clarifying it here to let you know that I am basically focusing on all types of colonizers and colonized people, despite knowing that Frantz Fanon is focusing on Africa and French in relationship of colonizer and colonizer. So let's come to Black Skin and White Mask. The central theme of this particular book is race, differentiating on the basis of the color and ethnicity, primarily color, which we can see until now. And because of this race, the kind of situation these races face, uh, their lived experience. Lived experience is a very anthropological and cultural term and existential term, which tells that your experience is based on the way you are living, the way the context and the way the situation around you is affecting you. So this is what is lived experience. So basically, it's about lived experience of black men, and it's a critique of negritude and the way colonizer, when they came and they differentiated between the white race and to the rest of all black race they called negro or niger or niger or uh, classifying them into one monolithic homogeneous group without understanding that though they by face or by color or they look same, but at the same time they do have different tribes and they do have different identities because of region, because of ethnicities, because of tribal recognitions. So in terms of colonization, within the context of colonization, these identities, which were very much regional, they were eradicated and these were eliminated, and the colonized people were just recognized as the one who are colonized as the blacks. So this is what this theme is, that the previous identity had been eliminated and new identity is constructed, and how these black people or the colonizer actually feel in that. And then here we do find, if we talk about South Asian colonization, those South Asian, they all were recognized as brown race and they all were recognized as South Asian, the colonizer. Yet there's a little difference, like the colonized people of South Asia, they were recognized as Muslims and Hindus as well, because the British policy was divide and rule. However, the French policy is to homogenize every person. Yet the lived experience is somewhat the same, even with in South Asia. I'm talking about, despite they were divided and then they were ruled, yet they were exploited and manipulated in the similar way. So their lived experience is also very depressing and oppressing, and it's also about eradication of the identity which they had and reducing their identity only in these divisions. So the foundation is same, despite having different approaches to rule the colony. Anyways, so what is this concept of race? This concept of race is basically the perception of white about the black. It's not what black think about themselves. It's not what colonized person thinks about himself or his fellows. It's what colonized, the one who is controlling that race, thinks about the other race. And that perception was making the colonized, the regional people, the local people, the indigenous people, inferior as compared to the people who conquered. And this inferiority was actually shown in double ways, that it was also self oppression along with the external oppression, because they were being dominated and they were being interpreted and reinterpreted by the people who did not belong to that region, who did not know much about them. They were being defined by them. Yet it was also self-oppression, because there was desire in the heart of these colonized people, this black race, that they wanted to be white, they wanted to get assimilated in them, they wanted to get into them, be like them, behave like them. So that was actually alienating them from their own fellows and from their own identity, and yet they were not becoming white. So that was also a self oppression. That was a force of alienating them from what they are. So they were in a state of confusion. Now, this book is not an account of community or collectivity. This is an account of individuality. Though we're talking about race, but still it's about individuality. What does it mean? It means that what an individual, as a race, as a black man or a woman, thinks about themselves. So race is a singular ontology. It's not about collectivity. As I just said, that there were multiple ethnicities, there were multiple other identities, Um, so this monolithic or this singular ontology of black and white is basically a creativity of subjectivity by white, as it is written in Peter Child's book on page number 52, that it is basically created by white people, and Negro is basically an artificial entity. It's not what was already there, which was already existing. It is something which was created to differentiate between the two races, and this is Fanon calls it a myth of unity, because this negritude is is basically, uh, even if a colonized will recognize this identity, it's basically a kind of resistance to the identity given by the white. It's not their real identity, because the real identity is basically through their ethnicity. It's basically because of the tribes they had, and number of ethnicity and tribes, they might have differences and clashes among them. So it's not a unit. It's not a oneness. They might be one. They might be united against the oppression of colonialism, but that doesn't mean they'll behave in the similar way, or they'll respond in a similar way against colonialism, or in generally when it comes to behave. So the subjectivity, the focus is on subjectivity. The focus is what is the pattern of their feeling, how they feel, how they use their language, how they use their sexuality, how they manifest themselves, how they behave in the world which is dominated by the white race, the world shadowed by colonialism, and how they will socially recognize themselves. They had one identity, they had some recognition, or they had social recognition before the advent of colonialism. But now, after this restructuring of society, what is their lived experience? How they're going to recognize themselves in society? One of the way they want to get recognized is through the desire of lactification. Lactification means the desire and the urge to turn white, to behave like white, to act like white, to get the facilities and the superiority which white is getting. So, and even in appearance, to be like white, or to have their sexuality is associated with white, women with white men, and men with white women, so that they can have their superior social recognition. They can be identified as respectables in the society, which they were not being recognized within their own community. So in this particular book, the black skin and white mask, which is whose theme, the main central theme is race, based on the lived experience on a black man. The exploitation is racial. The exploitation racial, based on their color of their skin, and racial based on their desires, based on their feelings, uh, the feeling they develop for their own selves, be it hatred, or be it feeling of sympathy, or feeling of being victim. It can be any kind of thinking pattern, which is a result of this division of race, which is a form of resistance, which is a form of showing their identity, the newly created identity. And we see in this particular book, the philosophies, inspired philosophies, are phenomenalism and existentialism. So this is a complete existentialist and phenomenalistic account of a man, how he is creating his meaning, uh, by looking at the context and looking at the surrounding in which it is existing. So, essence of of the life of a colonized person is dependent on the context of its existence, the reality constructed around it. So it's a very phenomenological and existential approach. So this is what is basically uh, the concept, a dominating concept, which is given in Black Skin and White Mask.